Welcome everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, Occupational Therapy Lived and Practiced. And we said that this is a podcast about two friends, one profession, and many, many continents traveled. My name is Kenny, and I'm here with my co-host.
Femi, thank you for joining us. And we want to say a big thank you to everyone who had watched the last episode. We thank you for the like, the subscribes, and the shares. And today we are going back to where it really started after our education. So the proper experience on the field, the proper practice after the whole qualifying saga. So that's where we are going, the moment when theory met the reality of OT practice. So,
Absolutely. We're just thinking about how, when we finished OT, right? And that was back in 2008. We finished diploma in OT, or we did our convocation, I think, around early 2009. Then we did our graduation. Then probably somewhere in this video you'll be able to see a picture of us in a graduating gown. But all of that, we were all together for 3 years having fun, and then the reality hits. What do you do next? How was it for you, to be honest? Let's start with that. How was it, that space?
well, the very first thing that occurred to me was that hopeless situation. Permit me to say that because when we finished, there was no hope of finding a job anywhere. The few people who were in the employment at that time were the people who came out with distinction. I remember they were promised automatic employment back then in psychiatric hospital in Yapa, right there. They picked up some of our senior colleagues. And after that, of course, I didn't come out with distinction, so I wasn't expecting anything to come up. Dailies, if you check newspaper around, you see job advert, you will never see anything about occupational therapy. And so we went back home. So, I mean, I believe that's the same thing you did. You went back home as well,
Yeah.
hoping for the best of whatever is not available, whatever you can lay your hand on. Some went back to recharge card business. Some were making phone calls.
I was actually, for those who don't know about recharge card business, our UK audience and all, we is a business where back then when mobile phones were popping up in Nigeria and all of that, it's a
Yeah.
prepaid phone cards that you have to buy to get the minutes or to get data for your phone. Around the time I finished school at the time as well, you just went back home and there were very few job OT opportunities, like you only have schools and all of that. Nowadays that we have all of these centers and everybody knows about OT and the awareness of OT is massive back home in Nigeria. Previously, it wasn't like that. It was very, very limited job opportunities. And those job opportunities were taken over by people that were before us back in school because we said it earlier on in the previous episodes that we were the fourth set in our school back then. And we had three sets before our seniors, as we call them. Some of them are taking up these limited roles, rightfully so, because they came out with good result and all of that. And that just threw us into this, what then do we do? At the time, we paid huge money as school fees as well. And then you just there. I went back home, sleeping on the couch, waking up in the morning when dad is going out and you're asking for like some pocket money every morning or something like that. And at some point, I had to go back to working with him in the bakery to just break in something, whether to get money to help with my phone or to just do something for a whole year. A
Yeah.
whole year. I was doing that for a whole year. I was playing ball on the streets. I got I got injured. Somebody kicked me in my teeth. It just like bent in. I didn't know how it didn't fall off. That was all I was doing for a whole year.
As for me, when I got back home, my dad was like, now you are a man, you are an adult. you can't live with me anymore. I mean, if you have to live anywhere you want to go, just
Mhm.
leave home. You are out of school now. You should fend for yourself. And there, I didn't have much of a choice, and I had to leave home. Went to a friend back then in Ojodu, living in one room, about four of us living in the same room. Some would lay on the floor and the other people on the bed. And so we were there sharing everything we had. I would still go to my mom, pick some food stuff, come back down there. And I started volunteering with one of the private OT organizations back then. And I did that for, I think, 2 weeks or so. Then that was when the Port Harcourt opportunity came. At first, it
Mm.
wasn't offered to me. It was offered to someone else, a lady we were working together back then, because she could not travel. She could not leave Lagos because of family dynamics and everything. So she offered to give me that role. And I wasn't really very sure of myself because that was my first experience. And leaving my comfort zone where I had my colleagues and everyone that we were interacting and going out practicing together within that organization. But
Mm.
I had to take the leap. I call it the leap of faith, which led to the beginning of what we are talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think looking back, and I've said it earlier on as well, that I was job hunting as well. We went to different orphanage homes, special schools, myself and my friend Joseph just roaming around Lagos. And that's one of the things as well. We only focused our looking to Lagos. We
That's
just wanted to stay within that confinement because that's all we knew. That's where we schooled. That's also where it all happens. Like that's all we knew. We only know the southwest part of Nigeria. And we were looking for jobs and we were thinking the pay is not enough, the pay is not ideal, and all of that. And I remember that when you were in Port Harcourt and they needed a second person,
yeah,
if I can remember vividly as well, I wasn't the first contact. It was me, wasn't it?
yes, it was
But he has had the opportunity to want to travel out of the
out
country.
of the country. Yes,
Hence why I was chosen to come around. And I only came around like what 5 months after you've been there. I think you got there around March.
yeah, yeah. March, yes, and then
And
you
I've
came
I've
in around
around
July,
Augustus.
August.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that was also something for me in the sense that going to a completely new environment, going to a place that I've never been. I've never traveled that much in my life, like on the road, 10 hours or 12 hours, or to even cross, to be honest with you, the southwestern part of Nigeria. Now going into a place where you even hear a lot of things you read the newspapers and see in the
Mm-hmm.
news about some of these places because they are oil rich states and the kind of things that was going on around then with the militants and all of that stuff. And
Mm.
then, but my parents were like, okay, I think they just saw it that be like, well, you have to start somewhere. You can't have spent this whole money for fun and you are afraid to take on the
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
So they just be like, yeah, sure, go. Send me with all the food stuff I could carry.
Mm-hmm.
And came to BT in Port Harcourt. And
Yeah,
that was the beginning of something.
yeah. On that morning when I was traveling, the hope was there that, well, whatever comes my way, I'm ready for anything. I was just there going. And on that morning, I got on the bus with my little bag. I think I had about five clothes and two pairs of shoes in the bag. I went. The journey took about 12 hours because of the traffic jam and everything on the road. The road was really very terrible at that time. So it rained heavily, I remember that day. When I got into Port Harcourt, it was around 8 p.m. I didn't know anywhere. And the little phone I had with me was having about 2 bars or thereabout, and the network was terrible. So when I called the boss, my hope was I was going to the boss's house, like the residential home. On getting to where I was going, there was no light. no lights coming out from the building. I was wondering, is there anyone in this place at all? I never knew I was actually going to the center. So there was an accommodation apartment there
Within, yeah,
in that
yeah.
center. So until the security guard now came out and be like, oh, this is where you're coming to. And I got in the compound, the whole place was deserted. I was like, where am I going? Then he took me upstairs, turning on the lights, and that's your room. And I went in, and that was the beginning of it all. I
Yeah.
felt at home, but there was no understanding of what I was going into at that time.
I
Yeah,
can only imagine because thinking about it now, I'm like, first of all, looking back, we were the only trained professionals
yeah,
in the center at the time. Every other person kind of like, they were like facilitators, learned on the job, studied something completely different. And by the time you came in, obviously, and you've helped in a certain way for the last 4 months, and I came in, the expectation was quite high.
yeah,
They expected us to know everything. They boasted to the parents of these kids about
yeah.
us coming in, these professionals are coming in, and they probably should know all the answers.
Mhm.
And that kind of like, well, I know some theoretical aspect of this, but autism is just was only a condition.
Yeah, it was just.
Cerebral palsy was just only a condition
Mhm.
that we studied probably in one class, or we just did it as a topic, and it was just a, and that was it. And then you expecting me to know all of this.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember finishing the school thinking that, okay, now I know OT, I'm ready. Then when I walked into the center, seeing all the children with all the behavior and everything, I was thinking that I didn't know anything at that time. Like, okay, where do I start from? And then we had this program they made at the center that you had to study, that's completely away from the kind of assessment that you would do as an
Absolutely.
occupational therapist. So
Yeah.
then came the blending of the knowledge of the theoretical knowledge you have, now blending it with a new experience, trying to make sure you conform to what the organization wants. And
Yeah.
you are the dilemma of actually being creative. So you have to be
Yeah. True.
creative.
It was quite regimented, wasn't it? You have this, every child has a program, a tick box where this is what you go through it with them. I knew a lot of nursery rhymes from that, that experience. That was where I knew a lot of nursery rhymes and all of this to help facilitate speech, which was also quite helpful because it helped to showcase the fact that it is different. You
Yeah.
might learn a lot of theory. The application of that theory is totally different. Your experience is totally different. You just look at it and see these kids and be like, okay, this is what I need to go through with them. But it also kind of like limited, like you said, the creativity aspect, how you can bring about your niche and your profession
Yeah.
into that. Because it just felt like, obviously, it felt a little bit more like, okay, you're just doing school work and trying to get this. It was like a sen kind of, now that we understand all of this stuff, it was like, okay, this is the program, this is what you do, and this is how you do it. Shadow this person, see how they do it, and then here is your patient, here is one or two kids of yours. The only place I thought I felt a bit more freer was the cerebral palsy part of the center.
Yes. And that will be because the physical features of what we studied in adult neurology,
Yeah,
you can marry that with
true,
what the feature you see in cerebral palsy. So
true.
easily you say, okay, if it is about key point of control, using your knowledge of neurodevelopmental approach, and you can relate with what you are seeing. Unlike, because if we couldn't call autism child psychiatry because it's more of a behavioral than it is psychotic related disorder. So it was really very difficult to use the knowledge of psychiatry to treat children with autism, but it was easier to use the knowledge of neurology to attend to the people, the children with cerebral palsy. So that's kind of what made it a little easier for us.
And also the fact that there was the autism aspect adds this element of, yeah, ABA, all of this kind of, this is the, but the cerebral palsy aspect, I think either the founder of the center didn't really know much about. There was no straight,
Clear
what's
cut.
it called, program, clear cut program for them. So you have to carve out the niche and kind of like, okay, I need to look at this child and assess and then make a plan by myself, which really, really did help me and kind of like shaped my mind in terms of, at the end of the day, when we kept on moving forward, I now really, really enjoyed um, pediatrics. And I will tell you the fact that starting in an autism center, starting where we did, kind of shaped my mindset as a person and gave me that excitement about kids. Loved it, made me love kids so much. And that was also where I learned to change my first diaper. To be honest. My wife will look at me and be like, "Oh, he's an expert in diaper change." And then, papa, you're done. And then you roll it up and then throw it as if you are dunking
Yeah,
a basketball. But that was because you left with kids for hours. You're
that's
meant to make sure that they're okay, fed, cleaned, therapy, play, and all of that. It really did open my mind. It did.
yeah.
It did.
Yeah, at that time, suddenly every theory you memorized became blurry. You had to sometimes want to reconfirm. You want to go back to the textbook. You then internet. Sometimes when you see a condition, they mention. I remember the first time I saw Rett syndrome. I was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
"What's
I
going
mean,
on here?"
that came to my mind when I was thinking about this episode as well, because I remember how that came about. Remember that they we were clamoring for increase in pay.
Yeah,
And we were told that, okay, yes, if you want to get increase in pay, you need to
right
do some
exam.
form of, exactly. And we were studying, right? We had this baby that we really didn't know what was happening because she had this combination of both like an autistic features
Yeah,
or and then at the same time there's the physical element to it.
yeah.
You see these
Motor
behavioral,
delay
exactly.
and
But
speech
we
delay
also,
and everything.
yes, and we also knew that she was fine until she was like one year plus
Yeah.
before she started regressing and having all of these features. And then we were wondering what's going on. And studying for that increase in pay opened our eyes to the symptoms of Rett syndrome
Exactly.
because it is very uncommon, is rare,
Mhm.
and she just fit all of the features,
And then
all of
we
it.
brought that to the coordinator of the program and said, okay, I think we have a diagnosis for this case. And you
Yeah,
know how they accepted it. And that's one good thing I saw about the organization. The people that we worked with, they recognized the limitation in terms of knowledge, and they were open to learning from. We were actually one of the youngest set of people there at that time. I would say you were the
hmm
youngest staff.
I was. If we're able to pull up some pictures
Yes.
to attach to this video, there are some few pictures. I was looking like, oh geez, they call me baby. Majority of the people that I was working with called me baby. I was like, what, in 2009?
That was 2009.
No, 2009, 2010. I was like 20, 21.
Yeah.
And then looking at it, and I'm just like, but it was an amazing experience. And do you remember that we had to also kind of like find a way to make ends meet
Mm-hmm.
from doing private
Private
practices?
practice. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because we didn't have the opportunity to do that during the week. the whole of the weekend was for private practice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the organization was frowning upon it.
They
Do
were
you know how much?
investigating it. Meanwhile, we had parents who just wanted that extra push for their children. Not
Exactly.
that they wanted to take the children away. We didn't have any private registered company, so we wouldn't take over the job of the
No,
organization. So we were just giving that extra push over the weekends. We would go to places, and you know, and then they started
it was,
investigating, thinking we were trying to sabotage the effort of the organization in trying to bring the children to the center.
it was,
Eventually, I think one of the parents had to confront the people that were, trying to do all the investigation. I'd be like, leave this guy alone. They're not trying. We're not taking our children out of this place. We just needed that. They just needed that extra push, and that's what they're getting. They're paying for it.
yeah, exact. Yeah, it was really, you I remember some of it just flashback now that I remember just walking on the under the hot sun on the weekends, from one house to the other.
Hmm.
Uh, just you not to be honest with you, it's not like there was not much being paid either way, but at the same time, you form this. It doesn't. You form this bond with the family.
Right. Yeah.
You stand like a symbol of hope for them. You help their other children just in general academics while you're treating this child. His or her siblings is coming to you, will be like, can you help me with this homework,
Yeah.
or can you help solve this? And you're able to, with that, you're able to form this, they become family, right?
I said some of the family sometimes getting to their home, they'll be like, "Can I make some gari bar for you?" Or of course, I know it's not professional, but at that time, we were just coming up. How much were you earning? And you were coming in from a very hot sun, and getting to the client's home, and they are making a hot eba with vegetable. And then you'll be like, no, don't worry, we can't. I
They
insist.
will
You
insist.
have
They
to.
will
You've
insist.
been doing this and you're doing very well. See,
They will
that's the
insist.
the level of appreciation that the parents were
They
putting into the kind of work we were doing at that time, and it was really encouraging. At some
it
point when I
was.
felt like the old job was too overwhelming, I just remember the impact that we make in the lives of these children, and
I mean, it just to also that is where I learned about resilience. That is when I realized that people also where you kind of like see that they say blood is thicker than water. In our country, they usually say that,
mm,
and you see how genuine love for this human being that has come into their life, and they've not been able to do a lot of things in their, like, so to speak, they've brought this immense pressure on the family, so to speak, because of their condition. Everybody needs to readjust. Life needs to be, as in the whole plan probably changed about their life.
yep.
But people still going. They do all of this therapy all the time to see very minimal, if at
Mm,
all, results. And then they still keep at it. They smile every day. They make sure that the child comes to the center every day.
mhm.
They are there smiling, talking with you, gisting with you, discussing with you while you are treating their child at home. You see how they live their life every day,
That's right.
despite having this kind of responsibility that doesn't look like it's going anywhere at all.
Mm.
And then they're also spending this so much money
Oh, yes.
to see very minimal result, because we keep telling people at the time like, oh, this therapy as well, apart from trying to be a curative aspect of it, is a preventive aspect where we are trying to prevent further deterioration and to prevent the joint stiffness, to limit the spasticity effect, all of that. You preach that, but to an average Nigerian, there's not a lot of education around all of this cerebral palsy, autism at the time. Most people just want to see their child sit. Most people just want to see their child have the neck control.
Hmm. Yeah. Something
And
is
then
missing.
you've been going on for what? Years.
Hmm.
The child is still finding it very difficult to have a neck control, and but they still keep going.
Yeah.
That is, tell me a definition of resilience and love
You
more than
see it
that.
only in those kind of parents. That's where
You
you see
get so that kind of like opened my eyes to another level of
com-
how people can love.
yes, and love. Yes. Yes.
It's the truth because it's easier to love when things are going right.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to love when things are all right. Your child is acing his studies, everything is going all right. Everything that. But when things are not going the way you plan, that's the
Do you still love?
that's the test.
Yeah.
That's the real test of it.
Hmm. I remember doing sensory integration sessions with almost no equipment at that time. You know, the sensory integration that we know, we know that we should have all the stimulus, or the stimuli around, all the swing, all the texture, various surfaces that children can walk in, things that they can
Mm-hmm.
fidget. And, we had to go out of our own ways, sharing toys with others. I mean, now I understand better about cross contamination and everything. But back then, it was really very difficult to adhere to things like that, because the limited resources, the limited knowledge that, at that time. But we were doing it anyway. Chairs became our swing at some point. You have to wait in turn for the swing downstairs, wait for the
Yeah,
other child to finish with
yeah,
the swing, and then,
yeah. Those were even swings that were made for neurotypical children.
yeah,
They were not like
the padded
adapted
ones.
swings. They are not in a place where if a child is falling off, there is no pad underneath there. And you have to make do with all of those kind of resources. You have to make do with the fact that there are no braces, there are no specialist wheelchairs, there are no specialist seating,
Hmm.
there are no collars or anything at all to help with neck control, to help with anything at all. You have to use cloth
Growth.
and wrap it around the neck to hold the neck in
Yeah,
a certain way. You have to use sandbags to hold the legs in like W or Y seating. You, you have to just have something now to help these children.
that's right.
Don't get me wrong, we did amazing with all of them because apart from the curative aspect, like I said, the preventive aspect was there. But there are some people that saw a magnificent milestone shift in their
Hmm.
kids. They were able to start talking, start walking, got their balance better, went to school, started writing, doing all of this stuff. We got all of that. Obviously, there are some that it was more preventive than anything else, and there was probably not because of the rehabilitation. It's more because of the brain capacity to take on all of this learning at the time. But you just have to make use of everything available
Hmm.
to you at the time. But I mean, there's so many challenges to talk
Yeah.
about. We can't fit all of this in one podcast. It was 2 years. It was 2 years of experience that I really, really did enjoy. It
Yeah.
was 2 years of experience, like working with a particular autism, a child with autism, if you remember. And then he, I became, they became family.
Yeah.
They were so nice. They were the best people in the entire world. My boy not being able to wanting to eat at all, just only
Yeah.
one type of food,
Yeah.
not wanting to brush his teeth, to doing all of that, eating everything. I remember one of his birthdays because it became that the mom had to rent out the old Chinese restaurant
Yeah.
and invited us to come and dine for his birthday because he started eating
Yeah.
everything. And then for him to start walking because he was
It was
at that
tiptoeing.
behavioral part where he tiptoes and
Yes.
it's because of some sensory issues and then he's actually tendon contracted, all of that. I can remember all of those stories and which is
You
amazing.
remember, I would take him in the morning at the center We would do all the ADL in the morning, the
Yeah,
brushing,
I
the
know, I know.
everything, stimulating his oral muscles and everything. It was a tug of war. Sometimes we would be in the bathroom for like half of the morning session
The,
trying to
yeah,
brush his teeth because it was invasive to much
oral,
oral stimulation. He was avoiding everything that would touch his mouth, and it
yeah.
was really, the oral hygiene was very poor at that time when they brought him, because he wasn't eating. I think it was only one food,
Yeah,
custard,
you
I
only had
think.
yeah, did that. But I mean, you did that in December, and I have to obviously December had to send me to go do an afternoon session with him
Yes.
at home, and you just have to do all of that, do his toileting, to toilet training, to do all of that, and just to see the result
It was amazing.
was just mind blowing. It was mind blowing, and I think at that time as well, when those you see some certain, obviously the confidence the parents have in you, the results that you're seeing that was glaring to the blind as well. Obviously, the praise is from your colleagues. We had amazing colleagues
Yeah.
at the time, and you just felt like, yeah, and the confidence the parents had in us as well.
Yeah.
And then your own confidence started growing as a professional and be like, I
Mhm.
must be doing something right. They must be seeing something in us for them to trust us this much.
To give them hope. And you remember that parent education at the center became better after we got there, because there was so
Yeah,
many lack of knowledge. I mean, so much lack of knowledge about some of the expectation of the therapy, the outcome, because
yeah,
they were looking for cure. Many of them were looking for
true.
cure, knowing that the owner of the center was actually like a doctor who, I think, specialized in pediatric, if I remember.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think
they were
so.
looking for cure. It was when we got there that we were able to really bring that parent reorientation, when we will have
Mm,
one-on-one with the parent, trying to explain sensory processing to parent, you're trying to make them understand the autism itself. And some who came in with cerebral palsy, to make them understand that this is something like an arrest to the brain at this point of development, which by physical activity, yes, you can to a certain extent develop the brain through neuroplasticity, but
neuroplasticity,
there is
yeah.
not much you can do to completely restore the brain to the brain of an
A
neurotypical person.
neurotypical, absolutely. I think to look back at it now, you just feel like it was an amazing foundational experience
Yeah.
for myself at least, and I'm sure for you as well.
Sure.
And
Sure.
it just it teaches you humility, empathy, and how to just look at things and just wanting to help. Because when you see how much everyone around all of the kids that we were involved with are, you just want to leave a lasting impact in their life. And I think that kind of like was one of the highlights around the time. It was really hard to leave at the
Mm.
time because you built these relationships with these kids that you were treating for almost 2 years or more. You build relationship with the family, you build community around the people that you're working with. But I think we felt like it was high time to leave to further our own experience,
Yeah. So
right?
honestly, it wasn't very easy at the
No, it
start of it
wasn't.
all, because looking at such environment where you're supposed to have a multidisciplinary team like
Mm.
psychologists, where you're supposed to have speech therapists, that was when the jack of all trade in us came out,
Kicks in.
and we had to, both the job of speech and language
I
therapist,
mean,
do the job of psychologist and the job of occupational therapist, educator, school facilitator, all in
of
one.
course.
And it was really a full package for us, I must say.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a new therapist working around pediatrics, probably a bit more easier these days because we're talking like what 18, 17 years ago.
That's right.
it's easier now because there are a lot more centers with a lot more advanced equipments with technology moving forward, AI, and all of this that we have now. But if you're still kind of finding your niche, you're working with kids and all of that, just embrace the discomfort, embrace the learning. It's a learning process. Sometimes it helps that you learn with the kid or with the person you're with, your client, and everyone learns, and it just pushes you to want to do more. So there is growth and there's vast amount of space to grow.
When we look back to those 2 years, it kind of make me feel that was where my clinical reasoning became very sharp. That is where we learn to trust our instinct, because sometimes it is the instinctual foundation that you had as an occupational therapy. That's what brings the best out of you when you are put under that pressure of making decision, being the one who is leading in a way, because we didn't know at that time that we were leading anything. But
No,
it's now that we are now looking back and seeing that, oh yes, we brought a lot of changes, we brought new things, new learning, introduced different kind of things to the center at that time. So that was actually for me where my leadership skill began, where I could think out of the box and make things happen without any
yeah.
guidance from maybe a senior like you will have in NHS today. That if you are newly
I mean,
qualified, you have people ahead of you you are looking up to for mentorship and maybe coaching.
yeah, absolutely. Just to go back, I remember the fact that there was a time where they let go the person that was leading the cerebral palsy aspect of the center at the time, and they made me the lead
Yeah.
of that cerebral palsy part of it. And that kind of like, obviously, like I said, it was the formative time where I fell in love with pediatrics. And it's just the communication skill, how to build trust in your client, and how to kind of like be able to express yourself and educate people came out from. And I think that that's absolutely amazing. And it actually helped us to move into our next role in Benin City.
Yeah. Yeah. So that season taught me particularly to be humble. It taught me humility and empathy, which is one part of the core values of occupational therapy, actually became obvious, because you can't treat children in that state without being empathetic. And then I learned that every child that you see is unique. Even though we had it in theory, but without seeing it play out in the real practical aspect of it, you will not really appreciate it. I'm not undermining our lecturers who are not having hand-on experience, but it is sometimes very important. If you are a manager, you are a team lead who hardly go to the clinical area, I would advise that you at some point try, find a chance to go and, have this hand on. It will improve your empathy as a practitioner. And that's what, shaped the entire journey of our practice from that beginning, seeing that we could put our human nature into use, apart from just the theory that we learned in school, which brought the best out of us, I would say.
I mean, that's absolutely great. And it's something that we'll also have to talk more about in the next episode when we discuss about the whole journey of moving from that to practicing in a teaching hospital.
Yeah, yeah. So
Exactly.
that is it. So from an autism center to a university teaching hospital, which is a whole different world on its own. So, and I think that should be our next journey moving from
Yeah.
here. So, yeah,
Thank you.
see
Thank you all for
you
sticking
in the
around
next
to,
episode.
yeah, we will see you in the next episode. And thank you for the love and the likes and the share and the viewing. We know from back home to the UK to every other to Canada, we see you, we see the likes, we see you watching. We know where you all are watching from. Thank you very much. We really do appreciate. But we'll see you in the next episode.
All right, bye.
Bye.